My name's Mark Wheat. I am Vice President of the Minnesota Music Coalition, which has been putting on the Caravan du Nord Fall Tour of Minnesota, which has landed in Red Wing today, October 22nd, 2011, for the final installment of the Caravan du Nord Tour. These guys were with us down in Laverne, so they can give us a kind of feedback loop about how the caravan has gone. We've had a ton of fun in different venues with a bunch of different bands, and we're going to try something now which is a little bit unique. We'll have the guys introduce themselves without any instruments and give you a bit of background to High Respects, how they put together songs, and we've got a few audience members, and maybe we'll get some questions about the business, because these guys are good at the business stuff too. So, without further ado, thanks, gentlemen, for being here in lovely Red Wing on this beautiful day. Peter, why don't you start at the far end there and say who you are, what you do in the band, and how long you've been with the band?
I'm Josh Peterson. I play guitar, and I've been in the band I started in the band in 1998, 99. Sean's the resident historian of the band. And I've been in the band on and off since then for a few different stints.
Worth noting, he's been on every record, I'm pretty sure.
Yes, that's correct.
I'm Sean McPherson. I've been in the band 14 years, and I play bass in the band, and I helped start the band alongside Felix 14 years ago.
God.
Yeah, when is that?
1997.
97, right, a couple of years later. So, if you're the resident historian, Sean, just give us a little synopsis of how many members there have been and if there have been any comings and goings.
Sure. There's been a lot early on. Probably like by the time most of us graduated from high school, we probably had like 15 to 18 core members and maybe 25 people who had played a little bit. But then it really has crystallized into this ensemble plus our other MC, Muad'Dib, who's coming to Red Wing a little bit later, has really been going exclusively since 2002, if not a little bit before that. Josh has been a little bit in and out because he didn't tour with us as much, but it's been really solidified since then. But the early years were a wild ride. And Peter is the 6th and 9th drummer of High Respect. So he was in the band and then left, and then we had a couple different people, and then Peter rejoined.
I was going to say, was it deliberate to have so many members early on? Was that part of your philosophy of like bring in as many people, or was that just because you couldn't get on with people and they left?
You know how people quit because of bad management?
I think it was really a combination. I think when a group's going at that age, like we're starting when we were 17, actually I guess a little bit younger than that, 16, there's going to be natural turnover, which is like people do actually go on to college, people decide they want to do a different kind of music. People are very malleable at age 18.
That's what I figured.
So some of it was that. Some of it, frankly, especially as the resident historian, some of it was just mismanagement, where I didn't value people's contributions and they could feel that, and that's not a place you want to be. You learn how to make that different, but I don't think anybody at age 17 is a born, or I certainly was not a born leader, and we were doing things like, surreptitiously peeling first toms off of people's drum sets to encourage them to play less fills and things like that. It's not the pay
That's
scale.
A great tactic for all you young budding band managers.
If you'd like
out
to
there.
keep your drummers around, don't do that.
Well, and the whole docking people's pay for playing and things like that. People have to be making money in the first hand to dock somebody's pay. So if you have all the draconian rules of James Brown without the paychecks, some people are going to walk.
Right. Cool. Keep going. You young sir.
DVRG. I play keyboards in this fine, upstanding, citizen-filled band. Been with the group since '03. Played with some of these cats before that. There was a fun, hybrid High Respect show in 2000 I played. That was Felix and Crescent Moon as MCs, with Dosh on drums, me and Sean. That was fun. So I think 2000 was my first time playing with the band.
Sweet. Felix.
My name is Felix. I'm one of the two MCs. The aforementioned Muad'Dib could not be here for this portion of the day, although he will be with us for the show later. And yeah, I'm one of the other founding members with Sean. 14 years ago seems like 4,000 years ago at this point. It just seems like it was a long time ago. But yeah, just, growth pains in the beginning and what seems to have been, a really great ride looking back in retrospect. And I feel like we're in a very happy place. Peter, you beg to differ?
No, I agree. I'm Peter, and I've been the drummer for about probably 12 years. I think a great story about when I became the sixth drummer is that Felix and Sean had come back to Central High School, where I was in 11th grade in a battle of the bands with a group, and they came back as the celebrity judges.
Quotes.
And that's when they first heard me play, and so that's how I actually got connected to them for the first time after being a huge fan of the group and buying their records. They were all older upperclassmen. I remember buying the cassette tape, the In the Studio record from Josh in Mr. Demers' Ancient Civilization class and being very nervous to come up to you and buy it.
Pretty intimidating. So.
Yeah.
So you actually put out a tape while you were still in high school, or you were still in school?
No,
You
we
guys
We were all still
Yeah,
there.
we put out a tape. We put out a tape in like the end of '97 or early '98 called "Live from the Studio," which was all stuff that we had sort of invented in either Sean's basement or in the studio in the recording class at Central.
Or borrowed.
Yeah.
Or stole.
Yeah, just stuff that we may have taken from other places. And I think we didn't really know what we were doing. We were just like, we booked studio time at the studio in the guy's basement. It's going to be awesome. And we went and recorded this record and made 200 tapes and sold out.
Really? You actually sold them?
Sold 200 tapes. And it felt like a big deal at the time.
That's good, because I remember in my early days, a lot of musicians, I actually remember telling one that we know, J.G. Everest, I told him, don't give your stuff away.
No.
Because a lot of local bands would literally give everything away what they recorded live. Was that like a decision of yours?
No, I mean, I don't think it was as calculated as that, but I think, yes, it was. I mean, the whole point of being a band at that age, I think, to us was kind of to put out a record. We wanted to put out an album, and that was the medium that, frankly, we could afford to do at the time.
Right.
It was sort of the end of the tape time, so it felt like tapes are still the safe thing to do.
Yeah.
But we did the tape, and we certainly gave away a lot of our music in person by performing live at school for no money, and that was how a lot of people got into us. I've been excited to be in the band because we've been able to do so many live shows, but putting out that tape felt like a huge hurdle to cross.
And making people pay for it, that was good. Making them value them. I mean, because now maybe a band couldn't do that. I don't know. Maybe a band couldn't force people to pay for their money.
I don't think a comparatively popular band in their high school of the size of Central would sell 200 copies. I'll certainly say that. I mean, because if you wanted, we charged $7, and if you wanted, that was the only way you could have the music, and that's quite different. And it was kind of like something that it helped of probably like the 2 free copies we did give away. One went to Zach Combs of Cancer Troop, and one went to Slug, who wrote about us in his column in Pulse. And if you think about, you only have 200 copies, and you got 2 people who are still very influential in the Twin Cities music scene. I mean, it was very lucky that we got that right up. And I remember reading about Felix brought it to a pep rally, and I remember being like, "Oh my God, we got written up in the Pulse," and I was like,
Did Slug do Slug's from Atmosphere, for people who don't know out there? And did he write regularly for Pulse?
Yeah, he had a article or a column called "Permanent on Surfaces" that was like basically a little like newsreel about the Twin Cities hip hop scene. And
cool.
The last paragraph once was like, "Best believe I'm checking for," and it was like high respects, Cancer, and like 2 other things. And I was like,
We're in there.
yeah. So, it was exciting. It was exciting to do that in high school too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was the next step? I know we didn't do in Laverne is like give you a discography, if you can do that real quick. maybe Sean, historian.
Resident historian.
So
Okay.
the tape was
1997.
97.
Actually, excuse me, 1998 is when we put out our tape. And then that would be my junior year when the tape came out. And then during my senior year, 1999, we recorded in February a record called Anti-Disestablished Metabolism. We didn't actually release that until February of 2000, but we recorded it in February of 99.
Did you release that with somebody or again on your own?
On our own.
We released it on our own, but I called up Interlock Records and I was like, can I get one of those cool codes where it says like INT007? and, like, and the guy who's the label manager, Sky, was sort of like, yeah, I think it'd be 7. Like, it'd be okay. And I was like, okay. So like, Steve, my brother who's here, did the artwork for that record and played in the group at the time. And I was like, yeah, it's 007. We put it on. Disc makers sent us 1,000 copies, and we slowly sold out of those. That took a number of years, but that was the next record. Was that, and that was kind of released after I had already moved, and at the time we thought the band might be over.
Right. You went to school?
Yeah, I went to school in Vermont. I found a great flyer on Facebook that was like Odd Job's farewell show, and then it was like Higher Spec's last show, and then like one other person in the opener was like Brother Ali or something.
No way.
Oh wow, it's because we were already like, yeah, we're done. I'm going to Vermont, and it's all good. But then we started working again. Felix came out, spent a month with me in Vermont, where I just booked shows at local colleges on the weekends because I had a bunch of friends who were also freshmen at places. So I was like, hey, can we play at your college? So we did weekends for a month. And then I decided I really wanted to come back and take the group seriously. So we really started again seriously in the summer of 2000. And during that year, we started working on what would end up being Small Steps, which is our oldest still in print release. That came out in March of 2002. So we'll have our 10-year anniversary of that record in March of 2012.
Sweet. We'll do a weekend for you on the current. 10 years. Small Step.
10 years.
That's on tape.
Yeah.
Was that with a label too?
No.
No.
I think yes, no, we did again. Like
Just
there's-
got a number.
No,
Make
yeah,
a
from
number.
Interlock. There's people. We self-financed our records, but we were down with Interlock, and Interlock had a fund for other records, but we were making enough from our shows.
So where are Interlock? Where were they guys based?
Oh, here. That's like
Yeah, they were
that was
based in
Cancer
Minneapolis,
Troop, Odd Jobs, Carnage, a whole bunch of people who have
Yeah.
continued to go on and be successful, but at one point were more linked business-wise, sort of on a co-op thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Next record after that was a Tiger Dancing, which it took us quite a while to get from Small Steps to a Tiger Dancing. Our lineup changed quite a bit. We went from having our former keyboard player Tasha Barron on that record to having our good friend DVRG here join us. And I feel like a Tiger Dancing was like a big growing up for us musically. I feel like we took a leap towards more where we are now. And that record, we did sign a deal. We had, at that point, gotten management with our good friend Vicky, and we had gotten this idea in our heads that we should try to get with a label. We ended up fitting in with Razor and Tie out of New York, and they are more famously known for like Kids Bop and like big compilations like Thug Nation and stuff like that. And but they decided at that point that they wanted to put together.
So you fit right in because you're like a cross between those
Well,
two things.
they had decided that they wanted to put together a roster of actual artists. And like we fit in not at all. I think their biggest artist was Lamb of God, like the metal band. And it was weird because they just didn't. I mean, they gave us a lot of support. Don't get me wrong, but it was weird because this clearly wasn't their thing. The A&R there, a gentleman named Gerard, was amazing to us, but it just wasn't their thing. So on the next project, when it came time to do our next record, we knew that we wanted to go our own way again.
And that was 2008. Our last record was 2008. High Respects was the title.
Yeah, self-titled record.
I'm a little disappointed you didn't point out the high school Tiger Dancing.
Shoutouts track.
Yeah. Mark Wheat, your gracious host, did the shout outs at the end of our record because we were traveling, and I remember going like, at this point, rappers still acted like rappers on the records. And they would have shout outs at the end of the record. So it'd be like, thanks to this person, thanks to that person. There's sort of a warm history of that. And we were like, let's put classical music over it and get a British guy to do it.
And they only need one British guy.
A British guy, right?
And we were
I was
like,
just
Well,
the
you
only
gotta
British
have
guy they knew.
one with a good voice.
No, we're sitting there like, if only we could think of a British guy with a fantastic voice. Like, I don't know, got nothing.
There's an Aussie dude who does the radio tape. Sean once called me Aussie on tape, so
Which was hilarious.
He also once called you an Australian on tape.
Yes,
That's Aussie.
Yeah, that's Aussie.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I heard Ozzy.
You
Yeah.
can't. That was on the radio, and if you could have seen Mark's face, you can't see it on radio, but he got very red very quick. It was great.
I was very nervous about doing the shout outs because I didn't feel qualified, and I still think that it's a huge joke that these guys pulled on me that they've never actually admitted to, and I'd like them to do that now on tape. It was hilarious.
It was not a joke, but it came out awesome.
I know. I went in and did one take because I thought these guys are just joking, you know. I one take, and I'm thinking, you know, this is going to take all afternoon, and they say they're all rolling around in the control room like belly laughing, and I'm like, "So, do we need to do that again?" They're like, "No, that was it. That was it. One take, done, boom." No, they're not going to use that.
Easiest $1 million you ever made.
So yeah, right. So thanks. No, it's the only time I've been asked to be on a record, and I hold it dear to my heart. So thank you, gentlemen, for doing that, and I hope it didn't undermine your street cred very much. Having a know nothing about hip hop dude.
We have
from
like
England.
the United Way thermometer of street cred for this band is like it's just right here. And then they were like, "Oh, they're gonna get Mark Reed on the record." It was just like it was already low, and it just like there's one click down.
Well, that might be an abstract like segue, but run with that. I mean, street cred.
Useless in rap now.
Really speak to that, because I mean, in a sense, the genre almost was defined by it for a while.
For a while, absolutely defined by street cred. Like, you had to have an arrest record in order to sell records. Like, that was just the way it is. And now, like, the biggest street artist out there is probably Lil Wayne, who accidentally shot himself one time. And like Rick Ross, who used to be a correctional officer and who has admitted that he really just makes up these stories that he talks about. You know, none of that matters. People still roll with you. It's about your storytelling capability. Kanye West is another huge selling rapper, and he, you know, he came from a rough neighborhood, but he's not at all out there telling you how gangster he is. And that's kind of the beauty of it. It's become accepted not to be gangster, not to be hardcore in that respect. Like, you could be yourself. You know, there you have Kid Cudi selling millions of records talking about, you know, walking on Mars and being high out of his mind, which is definitely not the same as street cred. That's just being a burnout.
Yeah, which might have its own credibility.
Yeah, I mean
in
Wiz
terms
Khalifa,
of the culture. So
burnout rapper. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not street cred. It's different. But, I mean, it does not matter that you have street cred nowadays. You can say whatever you want. People just accept it as entertainment. They label it whatever they feel like labeling it on Twitter at that particular moment, and they roll with it.
Well, it's because hip hop is in a different place now than it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago. It's always been its own culture, its own subculture, but now it's got, you know, I don't know. It's like a moss that covers lots of the entertainment world, or certainly lots of the music world. You can hear hip hop's influence all over the place, which is
Yeah, and Moss isn't
beautiful
gangster.
thing. No, Moss isn't. From a musician's point of view, Josh, maybe you could take this one. From a musician's point of view, I've always felt like the band wanted to get credibility from somewhere else, from other genres, from other styles, that especially because you were one of the first groups I knew to play live with live musicians and do hip hop and MCing. Is that something that you've always had, the credibility and the musicianship coming from somewhere else other than just the MCing and the rapping up there?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've always sort of been caught in between those two worlds, and we've at times, I think, been a little too live bandy for the rap world, and we've been a little too rap for the musician world. So I think it's in some ways been a curse, but I think it's also been a blessing, because I think that it allows us to fit in all sorts of different environments. I mean, case in point, we came and set up in this room, and we felt pretty natural setting up in a room like this because we've all been in bands who play rooms like this.
Yeah.
I think if you have, your average rap band and they walk into a restaurant like this, they're going to say, "What? Where am I?"
For the record, what happened?
Well, right, but that would be beyond our control.
Right.
So, and I think it helps too that all of us musicians play in a lot of different projects, and we do a lot of things that aren't this kind of music. So I think we've established individual sort of musical credibility outside of this group too, which I think people can then point to when they think about us as a group. And I also think that being sort of one of the early live bands in the Twin Cities really helped because we got hooked up with a lot of other rappers in addition to Felix and Muad'Dib, who are awesome, but we had the chance to work with Atmosphere, we've had the chance to work with Dessa and people like that, which has really been an amazing experience for us.
I want to interject because I think it's also put all of you guys as musicians on a platform that made other musicians look at you. They may not have looked quite the same way. If you were in a very different type of band, they might have just written you off as, oh, it's just another drummer from another band, or it's just another guitar player from another band. And I think that, being a little bit different in the scene has made musicians gravitate towards you guys too. And you can see everybody else at this table, aside from just me, is got side projects going on. And I think that the community of musicians that sort of gravitate around you guys is great, and partially I think because of that.
Right. Peter, do you want to just some of the side projects? Have we got a historian who can document all of them, or some of the side projects that to you are?
Peter probably knows most all of them, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Well, I guess personally, when High Respect stopped touring full time, I did some work with Mason Jennings. I've been working on and off with Kid Dakota for about the last 2 years. We actually have a new record.
I was going to say, is there a new one?
Face,
I just read about it. I'm like, whoa, out of nowhere.
Yeah, we recorded that about 2 years ago, though. So
Really?
It's been worked on for a long time. And then there's just a lot of other, I think we're all in a lot of small groups that there's not as much of an infrastructure as High Respects has, or some of the larger groups have, but they're just playing in clubs, maybe not focused on recording or making albums as much, but just kind of developing ourselves in different styles and different kind of configurations. On the drive here, Devon was telling me about 3 or 4 new groups that he's been working on, and he's throwing out people he's been working with, like Anthony Cox, who's just a fantastic jazz bassist, and he's starting a new composers group called the Cherry Spoon Orchestra with Michelle Kinney, who's a great cellist. And I think we all have those different projects that we're really just kind of always having our fingers in something that we're really trying to get happening.
Yeah.
After traveling a bit too, do you think that's a unique part of the Twin Cities music culture, that there is so much cross-pollination and collaboration?
We talk about it all the time amongst ourselves. We laugh at how much cross-pollination is going on, which is, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Even last night I heard the current advertising, all of the shows that were going on last night. And you have shows that have rock bands and hip hop bands and an alt country band.
Mm-hmm.
We've been doing that for years.
Yeah.
Everybody's just biting our style now. We did it for lots of different reasons. Sometimes it's a pain to have 2 groups with 2 drummers on the same bill because somebody's going to have to strike their gear.
Out. Right.
As opposed to having, hey, let's have a DJ open for us and just get that table out of the way and then we can play.
That's nice.
But yes, we've all. I love the Give Me Noise for their allegiance.
The family
the charts.
tree. Yeah,
Yes.
I know. We should do
Someone should do a High Respects chart because there'll be lots of fun and missed groups in there.
Yeah.
We were on the Gangs chart.
I did see that.
Like High Respect was on the Gangs chart because we had played with Dessa and Dessa had played with them, and we had played with POS and POS had played with them.
So none of you are actually on that record? Or?
No, I'd be really glad if I was. I really like that record, but I'm not on it.
No. Cool. I could chat for hours. I just want to make sure.
Do you guys have questions? I mean, you got
Audience
a notebook.
members?
Yeah.
You got a notebook? Are you taking notes? Where are you guys from? Are you from Red Wing? Yeah?
Yeah, we're opening the show tonight.
Oh, good. I was hoping it was going to be that opening band. So, what's your name again?
Mission Upper Metro.
That's right. Cool. So, what would you like to know about these guys, or any questions about the biz, or?
Yeah, I did have some questions about, like as far as setting up shows and stuff. You were kind of talking about that. always feel that we contact the venue because we're small time. We don't have anybody doing anything like that. So we end up just being thrown in wherever they put us in. We're playing a metal show, people wearing gas masks and stuff.
Nice. So you don't wear gas masks, is that what you're saying? Okay.
No.
So yeah, you're getting mixed in. So that's a great question because a couple of times on this tour we've had the touring question, and it's always, well, I should say it's come up, and it seems like it's a tough part of the business to get right. So do you guys think you have any advice there?
Well, I'd start by saying booking shows at home is quite different than booking them on the road. Like if you're booking shows at home, talking to the club owners or talking to whoever it is that promotes the shows is the right thing to do. And the thing is nowadays I think it's really social networking and making sure that like if you're at a show that where the other band's wearing gas masks on stage and they're clearly not your speed, you want them to feel bad when you guys get done and all your fans leave. You know, that's like that will tell the promoter or the club owner that they booked it wrong and they should have put you in the headlining spot. And from there, you know, that really helps build you up. And you know, really, I think a lot of that is social media nowadays to get those people out. Touring is like I think that's a much different monster because you are going to inevitably have to go where nobody knows you. A tried and true strategy of opening for other people if you can make that happen. If you have a friend in a band that's bigger. Beg, lie, cheat, and steal to open for them, whatever. If you don't know anybody at all, I mean, sometimes you just have to put a shot out there in the dark. But really, it's I think opening is a really good way to get started and build some fans out there.
Anything else to add to the touring aspect, Sean?
I just have more questions about your situation rather than because just to try to make what's helpful. Are you talking about playing in Red Wing and being with bands that you don't necessarily fit with, or?
No, we don't. We really don't ever play down here because there's not much. You know, there's not a lot. I don't think there's a lot of people who would want to listen to our type of music. Or the bars around here, they want to have like classic rock covers.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So.
You should know that this will be edited to say Red Wing has a diverse musical scene.
Well, yeah. We'll see. Maybe we'll find them all tonight.
Yeah.
So it's about going to the cities and being.
Yeah, we go and play up around cities and stuff.
Cool.
So I don't know. We have like friends and family around there, and we try to get all them out. But it's it ends up being like you're playing with some other bands, and you got their couple friends and family, and our couple friends and family, and it's pretty small. And that's what I was also going to ask, about finding your audience and getting people out to the shows when you're just pretty much starting from almost nothing.
Yeah.
Well, I think some of the bands from cities outside of the Twin Cities that nearby that have cultivated a lot have often brought some sort of formula that's not quite 100% groups from that market, but is less than just a single band from that market. So I remember like early on when Trampled by Turtles would come down, sort of the predecessors to Too Many Banjos, these are groups from Duluth, would come down together. Would create a little bit of a critical mass for the potential high school friend who moved to Twin Cities, where they're going, well, I might not just see this one band, but the other guys from Red Wing are also coming down, and it might drive a little bit more traffic, but it also makes people feel like you're bringing a party, and you might bring a weekend type vibe to a Tuesday because that's the only day of the week that folks from Red Wing are there. So then that's going to communicate to the bar. So I remember like being at the Nomad at like 9 p.m. on a Thursday and running into people from Duluth, and I'd be like, what are you guys doing? They're like, oh, Trampled's in town. It's like a Friday. You know what I mean? They're all partying. So, and then the bar owners see that they can get a weekend type drinking crowd on a different day. But a lot of that had to do with them bringing more than just themselves. You know what I mean? And when you go in just as a single unit and you're trying to join the group, the ideal thing is to take whatever's most similar to you, even if that is the metal face thing, if that's the most similar at that particular venue, and make it go in as an alliance the next time. Even if it's a shoddy alliance, even if it's only one that'll work for one show. If you're going in, you're going, we already played with these guys once. Turns out our little crowd likes their little crowd, so now we have a medium crowd. You cut it honest with the booking person, and you go, if you let us pick that third band, there's going to be a sense of synergy. And then even in this day and age, if you get everybody's mailing addresses, whoever makes the flyers sends it around to everybody, and then you start to get a little sense, even if it's short-lived, of some collective thing. There's a lot of bands that we were briefly allied with because it was useful for us. We shared a lot of shows with the group from Kansas City that I don't think any of us were like monstrous personal fans of, but we served a purpose to both groups, and it was really useful. So that metal group might be going, God, we keep on playing with that band with the beards from Red Wing, and they might be feeling like, oh, but together it's worth something just to at least bring the party for a while.
Anything else from the audience? Family members included, if you've burning questions, Steve, that you think would fire up the panel.
I have a good question.
Yeah?
I think I have a good question.
Jerk.
You guys went from doing touring as your sort of full-time job there for a while to scaling back from that, and now sort of playing regionally, playing in the Twin Cities. And you all have now other jobs. And so, you're not, I mean, a lot of you are making your livings involved with music in some way or another. But how do you balance that with having a band, that you're playing shows with higher specs and you're still making new songs, you're creating new music, but you're also working regular jobs? How does that balance happen?
Yeah. It's a good question, because I don't know if did you guys officially make a decision, we're not going to tour anymore, but we're going to keep the band and we'll just...
Yeah, that was a pretty formal decision. It was a pretty easy decision to make because we had totaled our van, and we were just kind of like this. We were all kind of worn out, I think that's fair to say, from touring really, really hard for a long time, and just it seemed like a logical place to stop. And I think when we made the decision not to buy a new van, and not as maybe in not so many words, we had essentially said, and we've decided not to keep touring. We're going to make this something that we really do more or less on the weekends. And I think that, like, to answer your question more directly about how we balance work, I know for me personally, like, I have a job that is completely not related to music. Before going on tour with this band, I had a job in a field that I was getting interested in, and I decided I wanted to keep on pursuing that. So it's nice because it's like each one is sort of a vacation from the other in a way. I kind of like that. I get to go out and do things like this and be like, yes, I had an awesome weekend doing something completely different. And then if I end up doing something with the band for a long time, we work on a record. If we spend a week where we're in the studio, going back to work feels like a breath of fresh air. So it's for me, it works like that.
Balancing is hard in general. I think it gets harder as you get older, and things that once might have seemed enticing now seem a lot more obstructive, or like it's like, oh, that doesn't sound good to a group of 30-year-old gentlemen the same way it might sound to a group of 20-year-olds. But then I think there's a lot of good weather vanes in this group about where people want to head. So as a person who's often been in a leadership position, folks haven't been too quiet about what they do and don't want to do. Keeping those lines of communication open, make it so there's clear expectations. So it's just, it helps where you go, we're going to make this record. It doesn't make sense to spend $25,000 on a record that you're not going to tour to support. If your marketing plan is we're going to Eau Claire, we're going to Chicago, we're going to Duluth twice, and we're going to play colleges for the next year, that should suggest how much money you spend on that record. That suggests don't spend money on national radio promotion if you aren't going to be able to go answer. But I think a really important thing is scaling your business, like any business, scaling your business to the rest of what you're doing. So we're not going to make the same investment in radio promotion or publicity that we would. We're not going to take the same market building shows in markets we aren't building. Somebody goes, oh, this is a great opportunity to get exposure in Omaha. You go, great, but it's a drop in the bucket because we can't sustain an 8-hour drive for the guarantees we get there. And we could when we were 22, but trying to make sure that the choices you take are appropriate for your whole vision, and that you treat the people who do still like you well. So that's constantly a struggle, especially as a group that has fans in the larger nation that we don't hit. But it's saying, if the way we want to keep Duluth happy with us is to play 3 times a year and make sure one is outdoors and one is all ages, that's a reasonable market goal for us. So we can go, this will keep Duluth going. Next time they put out a record, I'd like to check it out. We might lose a fan in Omaha. We might lose 100% of our fans in Omaha. But we all are keeping our jobs. We have to make those decisions in a different way if you have those balances.
Yes. Also, though, there are other ways to get your music out there other than just touring. Like, I know that, the very few videos that we have made have definitely meant a lot to several of the fans that I know I've interacted with on the West Coast or, like, on the East Coast where we don't really go at all, really, right now as a band. They say, well, I don't get to see you live, but it was really cool to see something from this song that I heard. It's awesome to see you guys are still at it,
I think that what you're right, the thing that Sean brought up earlier, that about communication, and also what you said about a formal decision. I mean, I think that's almost I think that's one of the things that you guys have come to be really good at. I know is interpersonal communication about what the goals and what the boundaries are, and I think that's really key and something that a lot of bands seem to miss out on early on because one guy is thinking we got to get to LA. And the other guy is like, I want to tour, but I don't know if I can be out all the time. And somebody else is like, I don't want to tour, but they don't talk about it because they're making music together. And so, I mean, I think you can't sort of just all kind of decide not to tour. I mean, I think you guys were good about saying, this has happened. We have to make a decision. Do we get a band or do we not get a band? We're not because this is how we're going to do it. And, decisions about what shows are being undertaken is made based on knowing what everybody's goals are with it.
Yeah.
And that you will have that communication open. If
Well,
you don't have that communication,
I know that like Josh, he had school. He was, credit to you. You were like, I'm going to finish college now, not after we've decided we're going to stop touring, maybe, and he did not tour with us really at all while we were touring at our most heavy. And, some of it is flexibility, like our ability to say, okay, that's cool. We can make it work without a guitar player and not feeling like we had to sub or feeling like we had to let him go to find somebody else right away. But also, I think that I really feel like, we did start off maybe not communicating that well. And it was really only when we started communicating that well that we kind of knew we were ready to hit the road seriously.
We used to communicate more with our fists.
Yeah.
And with verbal jabs.
Yeah.
Phone books.
Phone books, yeah.
Now.
And now it's like never-endingly long email chains. And but
the quorum is peaceful, and everyone is open and honest with their opinions.
Yeah.
Which is great.
I had a really hard time stopping touring though, and I would, like every month to Peter, I'd be like, I was looking through the used section of vans for sale, and I saw some really good vans. Peter would be like, Rick, like, why were you looking through the used section of vans? There's a gold one that looks really nice. It's got 4 tires, and I like it all round. And like, I remember Peter was really like, one time he's like, for this band that was like, okay, we're not touring. Like, let's go out. And I
also distinctly remember a very long period of we could just borrow Doomtree's van. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I did, and it is a hard adjustment. Saying things like, I don't know, it's when you're like, oh, we're letting Omaha go, or we're like that's hard, and people are like, what's so hard about that? We would go there, and there would be nothing good to eat, and we get there at 4, and we wouldn't play till 11, and I'd be like, that was awesome, It's just like, I got the bug for that stuff. So.
Yeah, I do miss it, and every time I see a big white Ford van, I kind of get homesick.
Whoa, that's a nice, right?
Because we spent that much time in that van, but
that'll fade.
Yeah, but it's I miss it. I'm glad we've chosen the path we've chosen, but I do miss it.
It's getting to 10. Sean, you sat down and said you got a ton of Qs if we've got the A's. So is there any Qs we haven't hit yet?
Well, I was gonna ask more non-high specs related questions. I was gonna ask like if you guys or anybody here could change one thing about the way, especially I would look to you guys if you're starting out. If you could change one thing about the way performing live works, that would be a reasonable thing to change. So you couldn't be like, I just want 700 people to always be there, but something that you could actually change about. I wish this was clearer or that was clearer. I was just live performance becoming a much more important part of all of our revenue streams. If you could change one thing about it, what would you change?
I know for me, I wish that fans, whether there be 5 or 5,000, I wish that I guess I wish that they didn't take the value of live music for granted, because I feel like a lot of people just want to go see a show, don't even really care what it is, and want to pay the least amount of money to get in possible. And I don't go to that many shows outside of when we go play. And when I go, I'm more than happy to pay the ticket price because I feel like there is a value to seeing a live band or seeing even a good DJ. And I wish more people would appreciate that value because it'd probably make the shows more enjoyable for everybody there.
Yeah. Which actually, real quick, I don't want to get bogged down in it, but I often wonder whether it is. We often say about the Twin Cities music scene that you can see a lot of live music for nothing. Do you think that no cover charge kind of undermines the value of? I mean, there's a flip side to it as musicians.
Yeah, sometimes yes, sometimes no. I mean, like you'll go to like a festival show where there is no cover charge and there's bands, and that's great because there I feel like it's about an energy. But in other settings, it's also a bad thing. Like even if, I think that I've heard you say this, Sean. Even if it's just $1, that's usually enough to make people feel like they owe it to themselves to stay in the room. I put my money in, I gotta stick this out, kind of thing. You know what I mean? And, sometimes sticking it out through a band you don't like means that you're there for the band that completely surprises you and is amazing later on the evening.
Yeah. Do you guys have anything you want to change about the situation other than the gas masks? And we won't tell them, guys. I really like that band, but I don't know who you're talking about. No?
The one about, trying to put a value on it.
Yeah.
I was, at least myself personally, I was kind of wondering, like, well, if we put $10 on a ticket, is that going to turn people away? And I can think, well, if they're only going to pay $10, they're not going to come anyway. And I was kind of struggle with that. Is it worth giving up the little bit of money you might make in hopes that you maybe get a fan out of it? I don't know if that makes sense.
I think free shows have their place.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think in some circumstances it can be, in some ways you can make out better. It can be better for certain things like weeknight shows than weekend shows. If you can strike up a deal whereby you get some of the bar, because then people will show up and pay for drinks but not pay for the music, but you can still get some of the bar take.
Or in an ideal world at a free show, they will pay nothing to get in and then pay a whole lot of money at your merch table buying CDs and T-shirts.
Yeah,
But
more money in that situation. I mean, I think there's sort of a balance tactic you can probably approach. Right?
yeah,
One thing that I think has actually changed recently with shows, which I kind of like, and is an interesting opportunity, is this thing which has happened in the Twin Cities in the last couple of years, where when a band is releasing a CD, they get a bigger band to headline, so that the CD release, the person who's releasing the CD is the middle act, actually. And that's kind of nice because then you don't have a sort of middle range act trying to headline a show with smaller bands opening. You get a bigger band sort of headline, or else you get the thing where a bigger band is the middle act, and then so there's sort of the opener and the closer are the smaller bands, and that seems to work a little bit better, like crowd-wise, because then instead of having nobody there up until the very end, you sort of get people in the middle, and there's a little spillover in both directions. It's not as much fun when you're the band that's on last and you have to play from 12:30 to 1:30, and it's a Tuesday, everybody's got home. But I mean, I think sometimes it's kind of a fun way. It's kind of a neat way to reorganize this idea that you just have these bands nobody wants to see, or the opener nobody shows up for, and then a headliner. Like I think it might help bands on either end. I kind of like that trend in local shows. So.
One thing I'd like to see is more music groups capitalizing on a lot of the funding opportunities that are out there. I think musicians as a whole don't focus on public funding or foundation funding in the way that theaters do, that other performing arts do, and visual arts and photography and all those. And for a lot of musicians, the goal is the gig and the performance, but there's so much opportunity and a lot of public money available that to do long-term projects, to have much broader scopes, a lot more impact, and doing it at larger venues and having the capacity to get support for all the advertising that a group on their own could just never be able to do. And I'd really like to see a shift for that, because there's a lot of musicians that we all know that have great ideas but don't maybe know about it or don't know how to get into it, and to have the capacity where they're currently at to maybe put that much broader vision into this,
what that means
framework.
Is that bands who are maybe smaller bands, newer bands without the fan base or the support structure need to superimpose a structure to give their, I don't know, a run of 6 months or however, a vision to the time, have a structure in place, have money, have goals for the money. And that's, instead of just playing, oh, we have this one show here, this one show here, and it's not
Well,
building
and even
to
with the
anything.
challenges of just making a single performance an event, or even making an album a thing of value, it's a challenge in some ways. And to have a much broader project that takes components of all these and kind of exploits it to its greatest capacity, I think that would be hugely beneficial for more musicians to look at it from that perspective.
I predict that that's going to happen. And the reason, because it's not like dancers were born good grant writers. They figured out that there's no other money in dance but grant money. You know what I mean? There's no dancers who are making their money off of cover charges.
Right.
It's just, and as that starts to dry up for musicians, we're hopefully going to be stealth-like enough to learn the skills that dancers already have.
Learn the Canadian system.
Well, that's whenever you see like hip hop, if there's like a hip hop workshop and everyone's talking and it's like an open forum, it's always the poets, because the poets have already figured out how to get funding. So you go to this hip hop thing and there's not a rapper at the table. It's just all spoken word poets and dancers, because they know how to get the grant money. And hopefully we're starting to get on that.
We're trying. That's kind of what we were thinking when we started the Minnesota Music Coalition. So you guys have been some of the seeds to that, coming out on the tour and being actively involved in these workshops, because I like that. It's like creating the special event. And you guys have rode with us twice now and created special events. And I want to thank you for that. And that seems like a good place to wrap up the workshop from Red Wing on October 22nd as part of the Minnesota Music Coalition's Caravan du Nord 2011 final chapter. We close the book, ladies and gentlemen.